Hey everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Monster Hunter Freedom Let's Play. I was under the impression that the 3 to 4 star urgent is Rathloth. It's not, it's actually Yian Garuga. And so we're going to be doing Yian Garuga now. Unfortunately my audio recording crapped out while I was doing the recording and I didn't realise, and so this will have to be sort of an after the fact one. But at least it allows me to sort of speed it up. You fight Garuga in 20-minute rounds, much like you would with an Elder Dragon in later games, as opposed to just sort of one 50-minute fight where you have to kill it, as with other creatures. You don't actually need to kill Garuga, you just need to do enough damage to repel it to clear this quest. For those who haven't fought Garuga before, it's sort of like a purple cuckoo on crystal meth, and that has borrowed some of Rathian's moves. So it'll backflip, it'll do that triple fireball like you just saw, and all sorts of other associated nasty things which make it not a lot of fun to fight. It likes to roar as well, which you'll need earplugs or a well-timed MOI to get past. It's weak to water. I didn't have any, and I don't think there are any good water weapons that you can make in this point of the game, so I'm just rolling with a raw damage hammer. Before anyone creative says anything about the spiderweb glitch, yes, there is actually a glitch which allows you to complete this quest without doing anything apart from trading a spiderweb to the VG Elder. It doesn't actually work in this version of the game. I'm playing the EU version, and it only actually works in the US version. So. And it's also pretty lame, obviously. Now the reason that Garuga is such a pain, apart from being extraordinarily out of balance compared to when you fight it, is the way it moves is quite random, and obviously, as you just saw, insta-charge is something that it just loves to do. Garuga will fight not necessarily based on where you are at any given point in time. It will do moves based on where it thinks you might go. So other creatures you can bait quite easily, because if you stand in a certain position it will always do a certain thing, or pick one of a certain set of moves. Garuga not so much. It will actually charge at random directions, and it will do attacks based on where you aren't, in case that's where you might go. It means it's, you know, like in Monster Hunter Freedom 2 and 2G with Teostra's homing charge, and it always seemed to get you. It sort of seemed to seek you quite easily. Garuga does that, and it makes it quite frustrating to fight, especially when a charge does, in this armor, something like 2/3 of my health. Garuga's a bit like Diablos weapons in that the lower on health it gets, the more time it spends in rage mode, so the better you do, the harder the fight gets pretty much. And this is the first time I've fought it, but as you can see its beak is already broken, as well as one of its ears being ripped. I'm not sure if that's so the developers just made it a bit harder to get break rewards, or because it's actually the one-eared Garuga, but yeah, in any event, it's not necessarily a fun fight. Sort of like Tigrex in that, when it's in normal mode it's alright, it's not particularly fast, but then as soon as it hits rage mode, all bets are off. I fought reasonably cautiously, and this is just why you'll see me using a lot of super pounds. And there's sometimes when I could have gone for the golf swing finish on a triple pound when I chose not to, just because I wasn't sure if I was gonna have time to get out of the way. This hammer has pretty limited green sharpness. It's the anvil hammer actually. But on the plus side, you only need yellow sharpness to get through its beak. Yeah, try and roll through. One thing with rolling in this game is that you roll based on your position relative to the camera, instead of rolling based on which direction you push. So in later games you can actually you can roll in different directions to where you're facing, which sounds odd, but if you play Freedom you'll understand what I mean. One thing you will have noticed as well is that hammers don't actually KO in this game. I've been hitting his head for quite a while and he's not knocked out, and he's not going to get knocked out either. I'm not sure if that makes hammers lame or just a little bit more balanced than usual, but yeah, that's just how they roll. His tail swing, I think in rage mode it's got a certain % chance of actually poisoning you just on a normal hit. See what I mean with the baiting? I wasn't in front of him at that point, but instead he just charged in a seemingly random direction, and I happened to roll into it. One thing, another point about this game, and it actually gets me killed later on in this run, not to give sort of spoilers or anything, is that in later games, when you're standing up from being hit, if you press X, then you effectively have evade +2. When you're rolling after standing up, then you're invulnerable for a little while. In this game, you don't have that, so you can actually get comboed really, really easily. And creatures seem to like charging and wall sliding much more often. It makes for a pretty awkward recipe when you're fighting guys like this. This is another thing about Garuga is that it starts off quite small, and the more times I'm not sure if you need to kill it, or the more times you beat the quest, the bigger it gets. So it starts off like this when you first fight it, and then as time goes on, it actually becomes enormous until you're fighting sort of gold ground Garugas every single time. I'm pretty sure there is a limit, otherwise, you couldn't just sort of grind this quest for weeks on end and fight enormous ones, although that would be pretty cool. One thing about Freedom that I forgot and I remembered while I was sort of doing some grinding of Cuckoo for this armor is that monsters will actually sort of go off and do their own thing much more often. They'll just switch zones, and they'll go to a zone for a second and then fly somewhere else instead. It's not a lot of fun, but if you're gonna play this game after watching through this Let's Play, make sure you bring paintballs and psychoserums. I cannot stress this enough. Fortunately, in this quest, I had a pretty good idea, or I was able to pretty quickly establish a pretty good idea of what a stagger limits were like, because it didn't take too long to stagger them. Another thing about this game is, my goodness, the minions, they just do not leave you alone, and it's so sadistic. And some of these zones, there are in one zone there's like 5 Malinks in the old jungle, as well as there being sort of bugger all visibility, as well as there being sort of the creature that you're fighting itself. It's painful, and they keep going for you, and they keep respawning. I think I described on GameFAQs, I was asked what is the sort of the games were like, and I described Portable Third as being a little bit like being fed grapes while you're reclining on a couch by Natalie Portman and Heidi Klum. It looks great, it's quite easy, but it's not much of a challenge. Until you get, and then sort of describe the various games, until you get to Monster Hunter Freedom, which is a little bit like Chris Benoit grabbing you, holding you down, slamming your head in the door, and roaring, "Are you having fun yet?" Yeah. So I was under the impression that you couldn't actually kill Garuga in this quest. When I was first finding this, it was in Monster Hunter Freedom, and I was pretty useless back in the day. And so my memories of this quest were not a lot of fun, I've got to be honest. Those roars you can actually evade if you time it right, and I think I might have done a couple here, although that, to be honest, was more through luck than sort of good planning. But you can if you want to. And I mean, because the armor skills that you have at this point in the game are so... There we go, but I got hit by the wind breast. Because the armor skills are just so pretty much useless in this game. I mean, later games are more about stacking armor skills onto sets and sort of... And got it there as well. Later games are more about stacking armor skills on sets. Like, I mean, Greatsword with Art of Unsheathing is a classic example. You wouldn't roll without it. Whereas in this game, because the armor skills make so little difference to how you play, just because they're so useless, it's much more about the player skill, which is good. It makes it more of a challenging experience, which I mean is a big part of the reason a lot of us play Monster Hunter. I mean, I really love the enhancements that Portable Third brought to the series, right? But it's just not quite the same when you can sort of win every game as a bit of a battle of attrition. Whereas in this, if you try and just sort of smack it till it dies with the managing the don't get hit part, you are just going to get owned. Which is not a bad thing, actually. This fight actually went a lot better than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be sort of epic brutality, when it wasn't too bad, Yeah, I say that now, but like I said, I got killed a little bit later on, as you'll see. One cool thing about this game is that because it is based on player skill, if you know what's coming up and if you're pretty familiar with how it rolls, you can actually pull off some pretty mean feats. Like, There's a Rathlos in the Wyvern Egg Gathering quest. There's a Rathian in the Herbivore Egg Gathering quest. And this dude actually shows up in an early Velociprey, Kill 20 Velociprey quest. You can actually kill them all. I didn't kill Garuga just because I was a bit scared. But I did actually manage to kill the Rathlos with sort of a 1-star Sword and Shield, which is pretty cool. The hitboxes in this game are a point of contention. I mean, Portable Third is probably a fraction on the generous side. This game, yep, you do sometimes get hit if you're under a creature or behind a creature when it starts charging, but by and large, they're not too bad. I mean, as long as you're sort of aware of them. It's like, that was a bit poorly performed. It's like how sort of Tigrex in Monster Hunter Freedom 2. You know that the hitbox on his arms when he's charging extends too far, but once you adjust to it, it's not that bad. One thing I found as well is that not having a stamina system is quite a nice touch. In terms of, the fights are more sort of adrenaline the whole time instead of hard part and then easy part then hard part. And this, you need to keep up your game the whole time. Sorry guys, I feel like the commentary is sort of a little bit more dry and detached this time. For the next one, which is going to be Rathlos actually with a lance by request, there will be sort of in-game commentary while I'm playing. Changes to the weapons are quite interesting as well. I mean, in terms of Hammer and Portable Third, where it's got the uppercut and you can chain moves into other moves, it's a lot more fluid, whereas in this you sort of it's not necessarily clunky, but you do need to sort of be quite aware of your attack windows and whatnot. Garuga's definitely got some cheeky moves like that thing where he just were sort of charged, stopped, charged, and then went for a tail flip. If you get hit by the wind press on that in one of the early parts of the attack, it's really easy to get owned by it. See, like there, I wasn't actually in front of him, I was to the side, but he still charged in front because normally you would roll in front of him to avoid it. It's stuff like that. I mean, it's not truly random. See, this bit, I knew he was going to stagger on the very next hit, so I went for a triple pound instead of a super pound. Didn't get out of the way in time, or I couldn't actually because there's no evasion when you're rolling. Dizzied, and yeah. So obviously I cut the bit when I got owned and was running back. But I was performing pretty well up to that part of the fight. You make one mistake and then all of a sudden it's all over. Not so much in Portable Third. I mean, you wouldn't get dizzied off missing a single attack in it. So like I said, I was under the impression that you couldn't actually kill Garuga the first time you fought it, but you can, it turns out. I managed to kill it just after the 15-minute mark in this quest, which you'll soon see. Sorry, a bit of a spoiler on that one. But you can kill it the first time, and so I'm going to go right ahead and consider this Garuga armor as rank-appropriate gear for the next fights. Ta-da! So there you have it. I know that some of you guys are sort of talking about this being an ultimately sadistic fight. It's not so bad, really. I mean, even with a hammer that doesn't knock stuff out, you can still perform reasonably well with rank-appropriate gear. So like I said, here's the anvil hammer that I had, and there's the armor set. The skills are just water resist -3, health plus 10, and attack up medium. Cool guys, hope you enjoyed. I hope it was as much fun to watch as it was to record and narrate, and look forward to the episode 3, which will be Rathlos, and it should be up in hopefully a few days. Shouldn't take me too long to get there. Isn't he cute? Isn't he tiny? Look at him. Alright, as before, if you have any, and here's the monster log just showing that I haven't actually killed any yet. If you do have any specific requests, fire them through in the comments. Hopefully this one's been a little bit easier to hear without the background music. And that is everything. I've been your host, Mazereon, and this has been episode 2 of the Monster Hunter Freedom Let's Play. Mazereon out.